Hey there,
Hey there,
we are Bears in Excess.
I'm Eric.
I'm Christian, and this is the second season of our Bears in Excess show.
Yes.
I press the button again and play again. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is going to be a delicious episode, not because only
Yeah, so you
because
might
of the guest,
you
but
might want to get some munchies.
what we're going to talk about. Luckily, we need something here before this, so we can handle. Because, bears, food, Palm Springs, they're related. They're related. So we're going to talk to Steve Freitag. Tell us.
Yes. So Steve Freitag lives in Palm Springs, and he is part of an organization called the Palm Springs Cookbook Bear Potluck.
Yes.
And they meet, and we're going to be talking with him and finding out more about the group,
about
this book,
the cookbook he edited.
Yes.
So this is Steve. See? Told you. So I'm going to bring him to the mess here. Hey, Steve.
Hello, how are you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome to our
Thank
food.
you.
Just let you know, we don't cook anything. You're very bad, but it's okay.
We like to eat.
We eat, so we're qualified.
Yes.
Good enough.
So go for it.
Okay, so for those not familiar with the word potluck, can you explain what it is?
Potluck is basically a party where the people who are invited all bring food. So the host does not provide all of the food. The guests basically provide all the food. So our potluck group here, if you want me to go and start going into the history of it, we often have potlucks here in Palm Springs as part of pool parties. People bring food and just share it. And it was one of our potlucks that we decided, let's make it a little bit better than just half the people bringing bags of chips. And it just seemed like, okay, let's just emphasize the food a little bit more. So that's how our potluck group started. We just thought, let's make it a little bit more about the food and a little bit less about the easiness of just picking up a bag of chips at the store and bringing it. Well, we don't discourage people from buying from food if they don't cook. We want to welcome everyone who wants to come to our potlucks. So we do say that, if you can cook, please cook. But if you can't, you can bring something from the store, or you could help with cleanup, or you can bring drinks or plates, silverware, whatever is needed. We just try to be very welcoming and accepting for anybody who wants to be part of our potlucks.
Is there a charge?
No, it's basically, we have our potlucks every other month. Whoever the host is decides on a theme for the potluck, such as Italian food, Mexican food, Southern food, whatever. And everyone tries to follow that, generally follow the theme. But there's no charge, although we have thought about, our potlucks are often pool parties as well. And once you start getting into the colder months here, it can cost a lot to heat up a pool. And we've thought about putting out a tip jar for the host, just to cover some of the pool heating, because we love our pool parties here in Palm Springs.
Oh yeah.
Did you mention that usually, mostly the pool parties in Palm Springs are closed optional?
I would say the majority of them are. I mean, there's a lot of people here who just love to be naked in the sun at a pool party, and so I would say the majority of. Actually, I don't know. I really don't know. But majority of the people I know who have pool parties, they are clothing optional. And once you're here for a while, I mean, you can always tell a newcomer because they always want to wear a suit. And it's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to be naked in a pool with people. But then once you're here, it's like, there's the old saying, once you reach a certain age, you run out of something to give. I don't know. You just don't care anymore what people think. And it's like, yeah, sure, I'll be naked in the pool. Why not?
Yeah, we've been to Chub Fest in Palm Springs a few times. And
oh, so good.
Yeah.
And food, bears in close optional, it's good combination.
That's what bears like. You like to be naked in the sun in the pool.
How many years has the group been meeting?
We started in 2018. Originally, I write about this in the cookbook in the introduction. We started with the idea of using a same cookbook. Everyone would cook out of the same cookbook for the potluck. And then we'd all kind of compare the cookbook, see what we liked, what we didn't, and then give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down or whatever. Turned out people didn't really want to do that. They didn't want to buy cookbooks just for potlucks. A lot of people here are trying to get rid of their stuff. They don't want to keep buying cookbooks. So we decided we're just going to change it to the theme. So if you're a host of a potluck for our club, you can choose a cookbook if you want, and people kind of use it as a guideline. For example, we had a French potluck about 3 years ago, and they chose Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking, which is a classic cookbook. It's a little intimidating for a lot of people. So, it's like you could cook out of that, or you could just make something with French or French accent, just so it's all of a piece. And that was a wonderful potluck too. We had all kinds of beef bourguignons and cassoulets and champagne and strawberries dipped in chocolate. And, it was just a lovely potluck.
I remember my mother had that book, actually.
Yeah, it's classic. A lot of bears love Julia Child. They kind of grew up with her and learned to cook by watching her on TV. And she was very much in the French tradition.
So basically, if you don't like eating, don't go, because you're going to suffer, because you're going to eat very well.
Yeah. Our food is pretty good at these potlucks. People do make an effort. I recall it's like some of our potlucks are a little bit more about the food and some are a little bit more about the fun. We had a Midwestern potluck where we had food on a stick and all kinds of tater tot casseroles, and it wasn't high cuisine or anything, but it was delicious and it was a lot of fun. And we called it Sausage Fest because we cooked a lot of bratwurst in beer and then finished them off on the grill. And we just had tons of different kinds of sausages, and it was not just fun, but it was easy, because sausages are the easiest things to do on a grill, because if you burn them, people love them even more. It's like, oh, I want the burned one. Whereas if you burn chicken or burgers or something, no one wants to eat that. That's like a hockey puck or whatever. So yeah, so some of the potlucks are a little more serious, like the French one or an Italian one. Some are just more for fun. For example, this past August, we had a potluck, and the host chose the theme of flamingos. So he encouraged pink food. He encouraged things that were all different shades of pink, magenta, and red, and so forth. And the reason he chose it was he had so many flamingo decorations that he had collected over the years. It was wonderful. The whole yard was covered with flamingo decorations and pink things, and it was just a wonderful potluck. Although flamingo food is not really any
as long as no pink flamingos were harmed in the making of the food.
Well, some people did bring in like a chicken saute and said it was flamingo saute, and oh, and some people had divine shirts from the movie Pink Flamingos.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, it's a cool thing.
Yeah. We also had a Halloween potluck, of course, on Saturday of Halloween here, and people dressed up, and we had all kinds of deviled eggs that looked like eyeballs, and just like lots of humorously funny food. Deviled eggs, you could put like a black olive on it, and then cut little black olive feet so it looks like a black spider on top of a deviled egg. Things like that. And they also encouraged, if you didn't want to do Halloween food, to actually do something that was very autumnal, something relating to the harvest or fall food, and that's a huge kind of genre of food. There's lots of things that are very appropriate for fall, with apples and spices and pumpkins and things like that. So yeah, so we have a nice potluck club here. And do you want to hear about how we decided to do the cookbook?
Yes. Before I'm going to comment that potluck is also a good way to socialize, because some people, we host events in a bathhouse here. Some people are afraid that because in a bathhouse is just related to sex, but it's not necessarily. You do if you want or if you're lucky to, but it's not necessarily the goal.
Yeah.
So in a potluck house, you can make friends, you can meet people. It's a very nice way to.
It's a good way to socialize and chat. And
we've got actually about 800 members of our potluck group, which we've never had a potluck with more than 100 people at it. But a lot of people join the club because they want the opportunity when they come to Palm Springs, if there's a potluck, to be invited to it. And we welcome new people. I think I know everybody here in Palm Springs who comes to our potlucks. But if I don't, then I always go up and meet them and introduce them around because, I just love our community here. I think it's a wonderfully welcoming and warm community. And so I just want more people to feel the same way I do about Palm Springs, which is that it's just a great place to be.
You've been there like 5 times? No, it's been almost 10 years. You should go back. But I always had a great time. It's nice people, very good memories.
Always a great time.
Yeah.
Good.
So do a lot of the people come from out of town, or is it mostly...
I would say for any
residents,
potluck, we probably have 2/3 locals to the Coachella Valley, which is Palm Springs and the local towns around it. And then we've got also people who come in from LA and San Diego and a little bit farther afield. We had one member who unfortunately has passed away. He used to fly in from Denver for every potluck. His late partner had been a flight attendant, so he had travel benefits. And he said, I'm not going to miss a potluck. It doesn't cost me anything to come. So he probably came the farthest for the most potlucks. The cookbook is dedicated to, there's about 6 guys in the club who passed away during the pandemic. So he was one of them, unfortunately. But we wanted to remember them in some way. So they're in our dedication.
How did the cookbook come about?
Okay. Well, we started our potlucks and we were having them every other month pretty regularly until February of 2020. And it was in March that the pandemic really came down and it's like, okay, we're going to have to cancel them for a while until we get all clear that it's safe to proceed. And that's my friend Gary holding a copy of the potluck, copy of the cookbook. So we thought, a lot of people here are isolated at home during the pandemic. We started to have Zoom calls just so we could talk to each other and catch up and see how people were coping. Especially people who, might be older or single or whatever, just have someone to check up on them. Anyway, we started having these Zoom calls, and one of the topics we eventually got around to is like, why don't we do something else while the pandemic is ongoing? And we thought, well, why don't we do a cookbook? We all want to be better cooks. A lot of us know how to cook or are trying to improve our cooking, and we all have favorite recipes. So we thought, why not just get all these recipes together? I've worked in publishing before, and I've done 2 little cookbooks before. One was over 20 years ago, my partner and I did, called the Bears Cookbook. And that's it's mentioned in this cookbook. It was just basically our favorite recipes. We got them printed up. We gave it to friends and family. It was just a little thing that we did. And then about 10 years after that, I was working for Virgin America Airlines. And we were having potlucks at the airline. And we thought, why don't we do an employee cookbook? And I kind of knew what to do. So I took the lead on it and I put it out. Came out at the end of 2011. And Virgin America loved it. I was a runner-up for Virgin Employee of the Year, which is a worldwide thing. I didn't win, but I was a runner-up. But it was nice to do that because that was also raised money for charity.
That's great.
So, and the new cookbook, it just seemed like, okay, we've got time. We've got a pandemic going on. We can do all this through email and messaging, and you don't actually have to go out and take pictures of people's food because they can do that themselves and send you the photos and so forth. So we started at the end of 2020 and then continued through 2021. I was just kept getting more and more people wanting to be involved. And eventually I finished it all up in August of this year and went to print. We used a company called Lulu.com, which does print on demand. And there's numerous reasons we did that because it's very easy to do. Basically, you just provide them with a PDF of your finished book and your cover. That's our cover there. And they did the rest. And because of they're associated with people like Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com, you can also get the book through them. Although, because it's going to charity, the most money goes to charity if you order from Lulu.com. If you order it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, much less will make it its way to the charity. That's why I'm encouraging people to use Lulu.com if you're ordering it.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And since you worked cookbooks before, what was the the experience from the first one and this one? What is the difference?
Well, this one I tried to make serious because it is a serious cookbook. The first one we had all kinds of little. I mean, this one has some jokes in it. It's got some humor in it. First one had all this stuff that was related to our families, because it was intended for our families and friends. This one, you have to realize some of the people who will be buying this cookbook don't know anybody in here. There's 100 contributors and they may not know a single one. So you can't put in jokes that, just appeal to people who don't know these people, but you can't put in jokes that are, are references that are good for everybody, is coming to it. I also learned from the second one, this is a huge undertaking and you got to devote enough time to it. And it always helps to have a few extra eyes looking over your shoulder. So I got three friends, Michael Strickland, Wade Hampton, and Rich Gravetzian, to overlook each chapter as they were done and just make sure that everything was all spelled correctly and things weren't missing. Michael especially was really rid me pretty hard on things like widows, which are just like when one word comes on a line after in a paragraph, and it's like it doesn't look good, and he kept telling me to change those things. So anyway, it's a big undertaking, and when you start off doing something like this, you realize it's like this is going to take up my time for the next 2 years.
As you just said, the cookbook was made as a fundraiser. Can you tell us about the organization that?
Okay, we decided to make it a fundraiser for this group called Well in the Desert, and that's my friend Jeff there. These are all local Palm Springs people who you're seeing holding the book. We decided on Well in the Desert because basically they feed people, and that's what bears like to do. And that's what I do at our potlucks. We feed our friends at our potlucks. I mean, and Well in Desert feeds people in the Coachella Valley, the homeless, seniors, veterans, people with food insecurity, just people who need a good meal. Basically, they feed. I forget the number, but I know like 70,000 meals a year to people here in the Coachella Valley. And if we're not cooking for each other, we thought, let's raise some money to feed people who need some food. We thought it was a very appropriate charity to choose. So
it's a great idea.
Yeah, and we're going to be including the link in our description.
All the links about the group, about the lulu.com and everything.
Yeah, so where you can get the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
One place you can get it is there's you've probably been, since you've been to Palm Springs, there's a bearwear store on Arenas Road here in Palm Springs, and they sell bear related clothing and accessories and so forth.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And they're carrying the book as well, which is great for them, because they're not carrying it even for a profit. They're not taking anything. They're just doing it as a public service. And so I'd like to shout out to Philip Chesterman, the owner there. He's doing a great thing to help the public with a little bit of space in the store.
So do you have any formal training, or is it just like a hobby for you, or
cooking?
Cooking or publishing. Cooking, I started cooking when I was about 7 or 8, helping my mom out in the kitchen. I mentioned in the book, in my chapter of my recipes, that my mom used to make this thing called Chef Boyardee, pizza in a box kind of thing, and it was basically the worst pizza imaginable. But it made a little crust and had a little sauce and had a little Parmesan cheese, and you'd make it, and she'd feed it to us, and I'd be like, I like the idea, but this could be a whole lot better. So by the time I was like 8 years old, I noticed on the back of the flour bag that there was a pizza dough recipe, and I said, Mom, I want to try this. So I made the pizza dough with yeast dough, kneaded it out, let it rise, and it came out good. It's like, who knew an 8-year-old could make pizza? So from that time on, which was the late 60s, to tell you how old I am, through my teen years, almost every Friday night, if we were home, I'd make pizza, and that way I'd give my mom a break. She wouldn't have to make anything for dinner because I'd be doing it. And I loved pizza, and I wanted to experiment with different ways of making it and so forth. So I did that, and I also did things like learned how to make cream puffs, learned how to read recipes and cookbooks and follow along and see what I can do. And it's just something I always like to do because I always loved food, as you can tell. Because I usually, this is probably my heaviest weight right now, but yeah, so I do love food. Back to publishing, I started my career working at a newspaper back in Stamford, Connecticut, and Greenwich, Connecticut. So I learned about layout and fonts and headlines and whatever, and captions and everything back then. So since that's not difficult, there's a lot of people who do desktop publishing. My husband, who is French Canadian, or comes from a French Canadian background, he also grew up and is very similar to me in that he watched Julia Child. Around age 11, he decided, my mom's not making enough pastry. I need to start learning to learn how to make cream puffs, just like me. There's so many parallels in what we did growing up. So he learned to cook from his parents as well. So we're both pretty good cooks at this point. Both of us have also worked as short order cooks in like diners kind of things when we were young. So you pick up a lot of tricks there for, cooking things like eggs and sandwiches and bacon and whatever. So that helps with whatever you want to cook as an adult, because learn some of the background on the job doing that sort of job.
What about the other contributors? Are they mostly like home chefs, or is there any?
There's a lot of home chefs. There's a lot of people who I wanted to be in the cookbook because they're friends. So I would be encouraging them. It's like, oh, I like to have a recipe from you. And they'd be like, oh, God, I don't really cook much, but I do have one. So I can give you that or two or whatever. So there are some home cooks who are not very skilled. There are some home cooks who are very skilled. And there are some professional chefs in there, including a few bear chefs who a lot of people know through groups on Facebook like Bears in the Kitchen and through their blogs and so forth. Joe Minato, Matt DeGregory, Ira Meyer, Tony Marcacci, all kinds of people who just have worked in various capacities in the food industry. I'm very grateful to have those people. Oh, Jay Schmidt is another one. He was on the Great Canadian Baking Show. It's just some wonderful people, and I love the fact that it's a real cross section of people who made it their life's work to cook, and people who did not cook anyway, because it's like everyone has favorite recipes, and that was the whole point of it. It's like let's get everyone's favorite recipes together and share them with friends.
It's interesting you mentioned favorite recipes. Our next question is actually, so you provided many recipes, like a whole many pages of your own.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite from those recipes?
I don't know. It's like the thing that I've probably made the most in my life is pizza. Even though because of low carb diets, I haven't made much lately. So it's like that's probably one of the things that I've made the most. One thing we make every Thanksgiving and Christmas is a French Canadian thing that Jack introduced me, my husband introduced me to, called tourtière, which you might know, being in Canada. And that's a pork pie, and that's the recipe for that is in the cookbook, and we made it for Thanksgiving this past year, of course. The thing I like about that is because it's a pastry pie, I like to decorate the top with different ways. Sometimes, leaves or stars or Cthulhu, if the picture is in the book. Just various things.
Any flamingos?
And I've never done flamingos on the tortilla. Okay. But, it's like one thing I would describe myself as being most interested now in, I've always loved Italian food. So I grew up making a lot of, pizza, lasagna, pastas, and so forth. I've become much more interested lately in Middle Eastern food and Mediterranean type food. Jack is kind of a classical, he likes French cooking, and he likes American comfort foods. Probably his favorite dish is probably meatloaf, which we have like once a week or every other week. But for him, it's like there's no better meal than a good meatloaf, maybe with a baked potato and some roasted Brussels sprouts or steamed broccoli or something like that. I'm having friends over tonight, and they're vegetarian, or 2 out of 3 of them are vegetarian. So I'm making a macaroni and cheese salad and this thing called a vegetable roast. And I think the recipe is in the cookbook. But that's basically, it's kind of like a meatloaf, but it's made with brown rice, mushrooms, shredded vegetables, breadcrumbs, cheese, nuts, and just various things like that. And you could slice it, you could sauce it, and it seems entirely appropriate to serve to vegetarians.
Maybe if you leave now, can get there in time.
Yeah.
Can we join? I have nothing planned for dinner.
No.
Time difference is gonna help in this case.
Oh yeah.
Is there any kind of food you don't like at all? No, not for me.
I don't care for grapefruit. I don't think grapefruit has a very good taste. It's very bitter to me. I know my husband, his least favorite food of all time is canned peas. He cannot stand canned peas in anything, not even in like a tuna casserole, which normally he loves. He loves fresh peas. He loves frozen peas, but canned peas, no, they're just too mushy for him. So English mushy peas, that's another thing that he wouldn't want to eat. And I've got this little thing about I don't like tiny bones, like chicken bones, if they're in a sauce. One of the things Jack likes to make is this thing called poulet poché, which is a poached chicken that he learned from Julia Child. And it's just heavy sauce over chicken. And I just feel like the bones in something like that are like little depth charges or little oceanic mines or something. It's like, I don't want to come across them. If it's going to be in the sauce, please take the bones out. I'll deal with the bones in fried chicken. But for me, it's like, that's my pet peeve is little bones in sauce.
I'm an editor, so I know sometimes it's heartbreaking to decline a few things or to say no to certain things. Did you have to say no to some of the recipes, or everybody sent, everything was included? How was that selection?
Yeah. How was the selection process, for example?
We decided to pretty much include all the recipes that people wanted to submit. So there are a few duplicates. It's like there's some guys from Minneapolis. We decided to include pretty much everything, even though it's, you got someone's lasagna recipe and then another chapter, you got someone else's lasagna recipe. It's like, you can compare and contrast on different people's lasagna recipes. Obviously, it means a lot to them if both of them submitted it. I don't know if there were any recipes I outright rejected as being too weird. We've got recipe in there for gator tail bites, salmon skin appetizers. Those came from the same person. And there's just some unusual things in there, but I kind of felt like, I'm here to get people's favorite recipes out, not to judge them. So
how many recipes were sent to you?
In the book, we have a little over 700, I think.
Wow.
So it's a pretty big, thick book, as you can tell. It's turned out bigger than we thought it would be. But I kind of feel, there's more guys with the cookbook. I kind of feel like maybe for some of these people, this might be the only cookbook they have in their house. And so it's good that it's comprehensive. And if they're looking for some recipe for, it's like, I need an appetizer. What can I do to make an appetizer, or a breakfast dish, or a vegetarian dish, or a keto low carb dish, or whatever. I like the fact that it serves as a general purpose cookbook. Okay, so that's Bruce and Jeff. They held a potluck just this past Saturday here in town. Bruce is a pastry chef, and he's always wanted to have an English tea, a very formal, with the 3-tiered cake plates and the scones, the tiny finger sandwiches and everything. So we had one, and it turned out great. We had about 60, 70 people, and different kinds of tea and all different kinds of sandwiches, and so forth. Where was I?
And you said you have this every second month?
Yeah, generally every second month. Although this month, because it's December and there was just pent up demand, we're having one again this coming Saturday. Although we just had one this past Saturday, the one this coming Saturday, we always have a holiday cookie exchange where people make a bunch of like a single kind of cookie, and then they bring it to the holiday cookie exchange, and then they take a bunch of other cookies home with them. So you only have to make one kind of cookie, but you can take home, dozens of different kinds of cookies, whatever floats your boat. And our host, Scott and Farrell, who live in Cathedral City, which is right next to Palm Springs, are providing all the kinds of milk to go wash down the cookies, which I love because, while you're there, you can sample as many cookies as you like to see what you want to bring, home. So I'm planning on bringing many dozens of cookies and taking many dozens of cookies home with me. That should last me for the whole holiday season. And I love this. It's a kind of a desert tradition here. It was started by this guy named Randy Richardson a few years ago, and it was just a wonderful party he had every December of bringing a bunch of cookies, and everyone goes home with a bunch of cookies, and it was just a wonderful holiday tradition.
It never goes wrong, right? You're hungry, you're happy, and then keep coming.
Has anything funny ever happened at one of the potlucks?
Yes, a few funny things have happened. Most of them, it's not a high drama crowd. It's basically just a bunch of guys who like to hang out and enjoy themselves. And these guys. One of them, the guy on the left is Joey. He's from Philadelphia area, and then Eric on the right. He's local. Joey has visited Palm Springs numerous times and wanted to be part of the cookbook. And it's like, yes, we welcome visitors. So generally our potlucks are not, they're not that, I don't want to say dramatic, but maybe they're just not that dramatic. They're low key. Everyone's there to talk to friends and go in the pool or get naked and go in the pool. And and eat as much as they can, and there's always just way too much freaking food because people think like, oh, there's 60 people coming to this potluck, I got to bring food for 60, but you got 60 people thinking that. So what they're really doing is bringing food for like 1,000. So God, we always have so much food. So one of the things that our hosts always do is provide takeout boxes, and always like, please take some food with you, because I've been the host before and we get so much food left over because people take food, but they've brought so much food to start with. It's just like, oh man, we won't have to cook for like 2 weeks after this.
I remember potluck parties was nice, but in the end was when the cleaning was a nightmare, and
we had a lot of food left over.
No space in the fridge for us. Get back, please take home, take it, go.
Yes, yeah,
especially if it was like seafood. We're not seafood, so.
Well, we're pretty good with a lot of the people who don't cook. We suggest, why don't you help clean, and so they help clean. So the cleanup is usually pretty good. And then it's like, okay, the host can always, I hate to say it, but if the host doesn't want the food and people don't take it, they can always throw it away.
Or you can give it to the well in the desert.
I don't know if they would want used food like that. They probably have to have a little more control over what they serve to the public. I don't know.
And gays and bears can be dramatic. How do you deal with this? Some dramatic guys. How do you filter, or?
I don't know. It's just like our crowd here is pretty pretty down to earth. We don't really get a lot of people like over drinking or anything, or we've never had like a big hissy fit at our parties. It's just people are just like eating a lot and just enjoying themselves. I don't know. Maybe we've discouraging that, or maybe it's such a laid back group that people don't make a scene or something. I don't know. I'm just glad that it is the group that it is, because it's a very nice group of people who come to our potlucks.
Oh, that's so cool.
That helps. Yeah.
Very. Yeah. Amazing question. Just the primarily is about food. They don't think about other possibilities. Yeah. Maybe it was more the other part, like, oh, just sex, let's go.
Well, here in Palm Springs, where you do have gay men at pool parties, there are different sexual temperatures. Some pool parties are PG-13, R, hard R, or NC-17, or whatever you want to call it. I would say our pool parties for the potluck group are usually about like a PG-13 maybe an R. So it's because there are people who would love to come to these parties who would feel uncomfortable if it was anything more than just nudity, because we don't want it to chase people away by, it's like, oh, you'll never be elected to office now that you've been seen at a pool party where sex was going on or anything like that. So our pool parties are fairly mild compared to some in Palm Springs.
Yeah, based on what we did before, and also the bear event or bathhouse events, some people don't want to be in that kind of environment. They want to be something they feel safe, they feel just relax, just talk, no really pressure.
Yeah. Some people do feel the pressure more than others, so we try to keep it a low pressure thing.
Are there any plans for another cookbook?
Yes.
With bears or others? Or
yes, we are. We're already planning a second volume. This one was, once it came out, for all the work that I put into it, once I actually held it in my hands, I'm like, wow, I did this. This is great. I want to do it again. So we're planning maybe 2024 is when we'll be doing that. So I'm not going to work on it until after the beginning of the year, though. I don't want to start collecting recipes or anything. I want to take a little bit of break before that. But we figure it's like, yes, we'll raise money again. We'll get more recipes. We'll probably get our Brazilian comic artist Marco Veloso to do another cover. Maybe with change the food, change the men, and our title is probably going to be, the Palm Springs Bears Potluck Cookbook. A little more emphasis on dishes that are appropriate to bring to potlucks. Things that'll travel and hold. So, because that's our group. We're a potluck group. If we're going to do a second volume, we're just going to make it a little more potluck emphasized.
Hey, true. It's a very nice cover. It's a Brazilian. So proud to have a fellow Brazilian.
Yes.
Yeah. The cover, Marco Veloso is a Brazilian artist, and he does web comics that feature a lot of bears in fantasy type settings, wizards and barbarians and people with swords casting spells and so forth. But they're almost all bears, and they're all really hot. So I recommend checking. Actually, I'll give you the address for his website that links to a lot of his work too. But his comics he translates into English as well as they're in Portuguese. So they're available to an English audience as well. Yeah, he's a great guy. I haven't met him in person, but I'm trying to get him to come to Palm Springs. I think he would really enjoy himself here. And probably go home with all kinds of ideas for future comics.
The cover is going to be totally inspired Palm Springs style.
all the wizards and barbarians are going to have a pool party, I guess.
Yeah.
Will you do anything differently than you did in this one?
I'm thinking at this point, probably not too different. I'll probably continue the same format where you have the recipes, you have background on the people who's giving the recipes, and you have a little space for comments that they have or anecdotes they have about the recipes, because people seem to really like that. It really personalizes the cookbook. It's not just dry recipes. It's
true.
You can actually read, and if you read someone's chapter, because every contributor gets their own chapter, it's not separated out by appetizers or soups or whatever you want to do it. You really get a sense of what the person is like and where they come from and how they cook. And people have said they really liked that part of it. So we'll continue with that part.
Yeah, I looked through it and I like that too. Also, what about more pictures of the food?
Yeah, well, you know what? Because this is all done kind of over the internet, done through email and through messaging and everything, I'm not there to take pictures of the food. It's
right.
Like I'm not there to say like, oh, I need a picture of food. Sometimes I did say it'd be great if you have a picture of food and say, oh, I'm going to make it next week. I'll take a picture and send it into you. But I basically used what I got from the people who contributed, and I told them that it's nice to have pictures of the food. It's not required, but if you can take a picture of food, that's always appreciated. Of course, there's also a lot of pictures of the people themselves, and I liked that too because it showed them, in Palm Springs doing Palm Springs things or traveling or whatever it is they do. But it gives them more of a sense of who they are as people. So
also, pictures of food can be good, can be very bad. It's very funny. You can go the direction very easily. Oh my God, what's this?
I know. Sometimes anything, especially that's wet, like with a gravy or something. Sometimes we just look at a picture of a food and it's like, oh, that does not look appetizing at all. It looks like a dog's breakfast, is what the British call it. It's like,
Sometimes I see pictures on social media. Oh my God, what's that? Why? Was that pleasing or to make me disgusting?
Yeah, you got to be careful with pictures of food.
Yes, it can be scary.
Sure.
It can be very good or very scary.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So I'd like to invite our viewers to check the book to buy.
To get their book.
Yeah, and I know it's an expensive book, but it is a big, thick, full color, hardcover cookbook that raises money for charity. It's got a lot of stuff in it, and I hope if you don't think it's worth it, well, there's not much I can do about that. But I think it came out pretty good. And I'm very happy with it. I'm very happy that people who have reviewed it, like on Amazon and so forth, have really raved about it, and have gotten a lot of compliments on it. So I'm very happy about that.
And also, I find it important that to show that bear is not just necessarily about looks and about the sexual aspect. There's about other things too.
Because there's some bear cookbooks out there that it's not about the food, it's about the shirtlessness of the guys in the kitchen, and it's like, I have nothing against shirtless guys. I appreciate shirtless guys. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure you need to have a cookbook that's the emphasis of it. So there's some shirtlessness in this cookbook of people with pictures at pool parties and whatever, because it's Palm Springs. It's just, a typical thing, people be in the pool. But that's not the point of the cookbook. The point of the cookbook is to share people's favorite recipes with their friends in their community. And it's not about as I told someone, it's not about sex. It's about love, and it's the love you have for your friends by sharing food and by sharing community and your favorite recipes. Through that food.
And speak about that. There's a motto, like a thing in the book about cook and fun, have fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was our motto when we first decided to do this potluck group. We thought, we really want to have two rules: make food and have fun. And everything else can be worked out as it is. We don't have a whole lot of rules for our potlucks, or didn't have a whole lot of rules for when people submitting recipes for the cookbook. It's all about just making food, having fun, being with your friends, creating community, enjoying life, enjoying Palm Springs.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, well, actually, I'll show you. One of the things I wanted to do in the cookbook was to show how beautiful Palm Springs is. So we've, in addition to all the recipes and so forth, it's recipe, and then a 2-page spread of how beautiful Palm Springs is. There's just lots of photos of Palm Springs in it too, because it's just a wonderful place here. You've been here before, and you know what it's like. It's just a beautiful place. I mean, we're
I love the mountains there.
Yeah,
desert oasis surrounded by mountains. What could be nicer?
Yeah, I always remember every time I go out, the first thing I look at the mountains in the background. Every time they look different. It's very interesting. They never look the same. It was very interesting according to the
Yes. The day progresses, they just change the way they look. It's beautiful. And the skies here are amazing. We get amazing cloud formations here. Although in the summer it's just all blue sky. It gets kind of boring.
So I'm gonna mention the book again. So that's the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good sized book. So
yeah,
it's like 4 pounds. It's a heavy sucker.
No, there's no lack of recipes. There are recipes all over.
Oh yeah.
And bears. So if he does, see pictures too. There'll be some bears to look at. So it's never a bad thing.
No.
So people can support in the desert.
Yeah, it's a very good organization. I mean, like I said, they feed people. Bears feed people. We've got a lot in common.
Everybody's happy in the end.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Stephen, for being here with us.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
It was so nice. when the next book come out, let us know. Then we do another one.
Okay, I'm thinking now, end of 2024. That gives me 2 years, and that should be plenty of time to do it.
No, hope we don't take so long to talk. We'll talk before.
Let's talk before.
Yes.
I've got my.
Oh, hold on. Let me make the bigger. Yeah. It's nice.
I got the cover made into a T-shirt, and our club slogan is "Chuck it down your gob," which is kind of a British Australian.
Are you selling the T-shirt as well?
Yeah, it's available on Zazzle.com.
So you need the link too.
Yes.
So you can add that.
Okay.
So you could. So people can find the group there. Press Palm Springs Cookbook Bears. There's the one in the desert. I'm going to include the Lulu link in the description.
Yes.
Yep.
And also people can also follow Bears in Excess, our web page, and I have our YouTube channel.
Yep.
Everybody's happy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hope to see you soon.
Yeah.
Okay.